Stories have something very important: a beginning, a middle, and an end. We live in a world full of them. And would you believe me if I said that in your story, you are the protagonist? Hi, creatives. If you are just watching this video, you're welcome. And if you have been following me for a while, well, you're welcome back. My name is Story Brown, and today we are going to be talking about the 7 elements of story. First, we're going to talk about the characters. Every story needs characters.
What's up? I never yielded! And as you can see, I am not dead!
Your protagonist is your major character, the person that we are following all through your story. You might have multiple protagonists or secondary protagonists. Your main protagonist is the one that interacts with the conflict and the plot of your story. Not every minor characters in your story should be well developed or have a character arc, but the major ones definitely should. You need to give them flaws. Let them not be perfect. Perfection can be boring in a film when you make your characters like that. They need to be relatable. You need to give your audience someone or people that they can relate with. So
I be Niger boy. As I see you like this, I say, eh? My people. That's why I come to you, bro.
Hey, what's your name?
My name is Omar. What's up?
Famzi.
Famzi.
Yeah.
And you?
I'm Sissy.
Oh, Sissy. I love that name.
Actually,
Sissy.
we're trying to get a taxi.
Taxi?
Yeah.
I'm taxi. Don't worry, I got you. See.
perfection is a no-no in your story when trying to develop your characters. Also, you want to give him or her a potential heroic qualities that emerges at the climax. And yes, also a character arc. Next is your antagonist, that is the villain of your story, the opposite of your protagonist. Your antagonist is the one that doesn't want your protagonist to achieve what they actually want, what they are striving for. Your antagonist doesn't want your protagonist to achieve his or her goal. So he or she keeps on creating obstacles for your protagonist to reach their goals. You need to make your antagonist to be a formidable one that can be like the same level with your protagonist. Give your antagonist motives for their actions. It should be a worthy foe for your protagonist. Also, for your characters, your protagonist and your antagonist, you need to know what they want, what is their goal, what is stopping them from reaching their goal.
Damn.
For each of the characters, including the cast, you need to also know what they want, what is stopping them from getting what they want, and what would they do about it.
You go run am like military mission.
Even in real life, there's this adage that says tough times don't last, but tough people do. So the more challenges that your characters face, the more obstacles that they face, the more relatable they're going to be to your audience or your viewers. In these characters, you have the side characters such as the romantic interest,
Yep, that would be me.
the mentor, the guardian, and all sorts. These particular sets of characters, you need to make them not to look alike or sound alike. Their appearances and the way that they talk. Each of these characters need to have distinct personalities, their appearances, and even their motivations also.
This is Reme,
Oh, good evening, ma. She's married.
and this is Isoke. Good evening, ma.
The main protagonist of your story is the driving force, the one that your audience or your viewers follow all through the story, watch them grow, either from being a child to an adult, or grow from being good to being bad, or grow from being bad to being good. You also need to keep your viewers interested in your story by creating captivating and memorable characters. Make them real people that can actually get hurt, feel pain, feel happiness, joy, loss, and even death. These your characters are the ones that the plot is happening to. Let's care about your characters, make them interesting. Your audience don't have to like them, but they just have to be human enough for your audience to want to know more about these characters, to want to get to know them, and to also root for them, either good or bad, being the protagonist or being the villain, one way or the other. And you also, that's why I said before that you need to give your um, antagonists motives for their actions. There's some particular movies whereby It's just based on the good guy, the protagonist, and we get to see their story. We get to see how they grow from being a child to growing up, or being from being good to being bad, whichever one. While there are some other particular movies that focuses on the villain, the antagonist of the story, and we get to see why they do the things that they do. We get to know, we get to understand the motives behind their actions. We get to see that, oh, this person is not all that bad. We get to see like the backstory about them, about their life, and we get to sometimes we get to actually root for the antagonist because we know where they're coming from, because we can relate to them. That's what makes them relatable.
Thing about bad guys, they always lose.
Your characters may be fictional or based on a real person, but they must be well developed to engage your viewers.
I can't believe I'm in a body on this hellish planet. I have bendy meat sticks. I can feel myself feeling myself.
Hey,
Ah!
focus.
Characters that you can have in your story may not only just be human, they may also be humanoids, they can be aliens, they can be supernatural beings, or even gods, or even animals too, can be the major protagonist, main protagonist of your story. For example, in animations, and they're also, we've seen so many supernatural films too. Where gods are actually like the protagonist of the story, or we've seen aliens and a lot of other stories like that, whereby the main protagonist, all the characters in the story are not actually human beings. So the characters can not only be human, they can also be other species, if you call it that. Your characters are the who of your story. We hear and we see the story through their eyes. For themes, theme is very important because it helps to convey the message you are trying to relate to your audience. All through your story, you just need to make sure that your theme is embedded inside your story. Theme also is the moral idea that the writer is trying to express through the story that they are actually telling. Sometimes theme can be revealed through the lesson that the protagonist needs to learn. It can also be through the core conflict between the protagonist and the antagonist. Theme is the overall concept or idea behind your story.
What am I doing with my life? I'm alive! I'm alive! Free yourselves!
It turns a plot into something that really sticks with your viewers and makes them think. And yes, the theme should also be interwoven throughout your story. If you're looking for themes that you want to embed in your story, there's so many of them. There is love, there is joy, there is hatred, there is jealousy, there is family, there is friendship, there is fear, death, there is loss, and diverse others. Also, we have setting. Setting is the where and the when of your story. It is the location and the time where your story is taking place. You should show your setting. Let your viewers see where your story is. Is it in the past? Is it in the present? Is it futuristic? Whichever way it is, just make sure that you always show your setting to your audience.
Watch it, Sparky.
Some places can have just one setting, while others can have more than one setting. For example, a short film, there are so many short films that just took place in one setting, that is one location, and probably space of within few minutes or even few hours, but always one location. While there are other kinds of short films that takes place in different locations. So it just basically depends on you, depends on your story. How many settings do you want to use? How many locations do you want to use in your story? When and where is it? How is it happening? Where is it happening? What time is it happening? Setting has to do with the country that your character lives in, time of day, period. A story can take place in just a day or two. So you need to know your setting before you begin to write your story because it helps a lot.
Is this heaven?
No.
Is it H-E double hockey sticks?
Hell? 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 Hell?
It should also include information about how the world of your character works. What you include or do not include in the description of your setting should be intentional because you are building your story. And how you frame your story context can also make a difference, which can be imaginary or it can be based on real life situations. So your setting is very, very important when building your story. There is the temporal setting, that is the time in which your story is set. Is it the past? Is it the present? Is it futuristic? We also have the environmental, that is the wider world of your story, the landscape, as well as the cultural, political, social, economical values, and the way that your characters interact with these values.
We fight not just for today, but for the future. We are the whole man.
Also, there is the individual setting, is where your story takes place. Is it in a school, a police station, an apartment, at the park, or at the grocery store, whichever one at all. Point of view. Every story needs a point of view. There's the first person's point of view, the second person's point of view, the third person limited point of view, and the third person all seeing point of view. There is the first person's point of view, that is the I, me, mine, our, we. There is also the second person's point of view, that is the you, the yours. Also the third person's point of view, he, him, hers, her, theirs, their. This shows the story through the eyes of one character, the perspective and angle from which the story is told.
Allow me to introduce myself. That's me, Jordan Sanders. Well, actually, this is me now. I know, I get it. Big change, right? But that was me in 1993, the day I decided to show everyone at Windsor Middle School what I did best.
We also have the limited thought, the he, she, they, all in one character's head. And lastly, we have the omniscient third person, he, she, they, from an all-seeing perspective. Sometimes your point of view doesn't have to always be from the main character. It can also be from different characters too. Tone. Tone helps you to evoke emotions in your story, like thoughtfulness, dread, amusement, fear. Tone is closely related to genre. A thriller or a horror genre will lean towards scary, suspenseful tone, while a romantic comedy will be much more lighter and humorous, leaning towards funny aspects.
There's your teacher, Mr. Marshall.
I get detention.
Conflict. Conflict is the why of your story. If everything should go well from the very beginning to the end of your story, it will bore your viewers. And obviously, you don't want your viewers to be bored. When trying to create conflict in your story, just ensure that your characters have different viewpoints from each other. When character A believes in something and character B believes in something else, it will definitely create conflict for your story, which will make it more interesting for your viewers or your audience. Conflict is the problem that drives the story's plot forward. We have the internal conflict and we also have the external conflict. The internal conflict is what your character believes in within themselves. External conflict is that obstacle keeping them from getting what they want. Remember, conflict makes your story interesting and engaging. It can start small, then to large, overarching internal, and then external conflict. And every story requires conflict. If you do not have conflict in your story, there is no story because conflict is also part of your story's plot.
Do you know who I am? I will destroy your face. Don't let me call Uncle Tega for you. Uncle Tega! Don't let me call Uncle Tega. No. Leave it.
It gives your story purpose by creating tension and also keeps the viewers interested and engaged in your story.
I call Uncle Tega for you now. Your money is gone.
We have the major conflict, which is the main obstacle that the character has to face or confront eventually at the climax. And then we have the minor conflict. They are the lesser challenges and obstacles that the character has to conquer before the major one. Conflict is one of the most important elements of good storytelling because it adds tension and suspense that would make your audience want to keep watching and watching. It engages your audience and they will want to know what eventually happens at the end of your story.
So, what happens next?
We come back tomorrow night and do it all again.
If you can marry the internal conflict and the external conflict together in such a way that the internal conflict is something that your character, your main protagonist, has to achieve in order to overcome the external conflict, then you're telling a powerful story. Remember, conflict is the fuel behind the plot of your story.
You ready?
Huh?
To come live.
I'm scared, Joe.
I'm not good enough. Anyway, I never got my spark.
Yes, you did.
Your spark isn't your purpose. That last box fills in when you're ready to come live. And the thing is, you're pretty great at jazzing.
Lastly, we have the plot. Plot is the what of your story, the sequences of events that make up your story. What happens in your story, what plot means, answers the theme. It is the beginning, middle, and end of your story. Try as much as possible when writing not to confuse your plot with your conflict. Plot is what happens, while conflict is what is standing in the way of your character's goals. Plot is the driving force of your story. It starts with the exposition to establish the setting and also to introduce the main characters of your story. It involves structuring your story to elicit emotional response from your viewers. You can rearrange the order of events, withhold information until the right moment, or use other plot devices to create a more interesting narrative. There are many different plot structures to use. The basic one involves opening with exposition that sets up the scene, rising action that complicates things for your characters, climax where the most important part of the story happens, falling action and resolution that wraps everything up. When trying to use plot in your story, you can escalate the stakes that further complicates the conflict, leading to the climax of your story where your protagonist either fails or succeeds. You can as well use story structures like the hero's journey, Don Hammond's story structure, the three-act structure, Save the Cat, seven-point story structure, Fairy Tags Pyramid, and others. In plot, beginning is the exposition, that is where the key events of your story are set into action. Middle is the rising action where progressive complications raises the stakes. And the end is the resolution where everything gets wrapped up.
Homegirl is playing your jam.
Talking, always talking. That's your problem. You always talking.
So how you choose to end your story depends on you. On a bad note, do you want it to be sweet or bittersweet? Everything depends on you. Resolution is the end of your story. That is where you need to wrap up the conflict that you've been building up from the beginning of your story. And how you choose to resolve your story could tie into the message that you are trying to convey.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for staying with me to the end of this video. I hope you really learned a lot. I did. And if you have any questions, please do not forget to just put them down in the comment section and I will be glad to answer each and every of your questions. Thank you so much for being here with me. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that my next video you'll be notified of it. Bye, creatives.